Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Historia Politica Publica. In the episode of today, I will keep talking about the essay written by Hannah Arendt in 1954, What is Authority, and we'll analyze the genealogy that she employs to define the authority and how this concept has been shaping itself along the millennials. And starting from the ancient Greece with Socrates and Plato, she points how authority was fundamental after Plato's ideas in order to extrapolate the idea from the household towards the public realm. This is very interesting because at that time there wasn't any kind of a former political societies in which they could draw some examples from that. Not like, for instance, in the French Revolution, the people who participate there, the leaders of the revolution, took some ideas from the Roman Republic, but what happened in the ancient Greece is that because it was the first political society in the Western world, the people who were the philosophers that like Aristotle or Plato before him had to take some examples from other area. That was for Plato the crafts and the household in which, according to Arendt, the men were like the kings in the household and the slave and the women were submitted. Until then they were under the yoke of the men. So this idea was drawn later on the public sphere in order to express how the different ideas could be implemented in the political realm. In that sense, for Plato, the idea is that the rule of reason should be attained against the polis. In that sense, there will be the philosopher as king. Because there was absence of political experience, as I mentioned, Plato and Aristotle had to rely on examples of human relations. Again, the master and slave, also the idea of the sheep and the shepherd, the physician and their clients, and so on. So a person who had any kind of legitimacy in order to be on top of the others. In that sense, there was no freedom for the slave, for women, and for the people who were under the yoke of the leaders. However, at the beginning there was a conflict between philosophy and the polis, and this started to develop more kind of acutely after the death of Socrates. That was Socrates was forced to death because he was accused of influencing the minds of the young people, because Socrates was a kind of philosopher who liked to get involved in the public realm, talking with different people, teaching to the young ones, and he was condemned by that reason. Plato, from that on, he refused to get involved in the public sphere. He preferred to follow what Hannah Arendt called a vita contemplativa, which basically means to stay away from politics and just thinking about what is happening every day, but not getting involved in politics. In that sense, the compelling power for Plato lies in the ideas perceived by the philosopher, and you had to apply those ideas to the political realm. So Arendt mentioned that, quote, the ideas become measures only after the philosopher has left the bright sky of ideas and returned to the dark cave of human existence, end quote. Ideas in that way are instruments for domination, and the quote that I have just read of Arendt points about the parable of the cave. The idea that is written in the book 7 of the Republic, in which there are people living inside a cave, they are surrounded by shadows, and everything that they see is unreal. But because they cannot see the world outside, they believe that what they are seeing is the whole world. Until one person, Plato, left the cave. When he came back, he realized that he has been enlightened by the outside world, and he's able now to see the interior of the cave in its real light, let's say. But the people who are inside the cave, they want to kill him because they do not want to know what is outside. So it is interesting, this parable of the cave, because it is not just the people are ignorant inside and do not know what is outside, but also they do not want to learn what is outside. And I think this is one of the strength points of this metaphor employed by Plato. Henceforth, how Plato advocates for the kind of development of society if people do not want to follow the lead of this person who has been outside. In other words, the person that has lived has searched the true essence of being, but does not have practical applicability, because even though you have the best ideas of the world, if the people who are inside the cave do not want to listen to you, what are you going to do then? And this person faces hostility by the other beings and start to think of the truth to be applied to other people, but this person do not know how to do so. Then Plato creates something that has still influenced our societies, and this is the idea of punishment and reward. The idea of hell that Christianity applied with such an efficiency across the millennia. This is an idea that for Plato was something like, if you follow reason, you will be rewarded. However, if you do not do things right, you will be punished. And this started to take shape after the Roman Republic, in which the Romans used the ideas of Greece, ancient thought, in order to carry with the new established foundation. So it was important to transform these ideas into measures, and Plato uses the analogy with the craftsman. So a person who wants to build a chair, first of all, needs to think in his or her mind how this chair will be like. And then this person can start to build the chair. So for Plato, the idea transcends beyond the model created. And for future works, the original idea will become the standard. So let's say if I want to build a chair now, I will follow the idea of other chairs that has been building in the last thousands of years. But there was always a one chair that was the original. And from then on, all the following chairs have followed this measure, this kind of standard idea of what is a chair. At the same time, for Plato, apart from the idea transcending the realm of politics, the punishment and reward, the creation of hell as a kind of metaphysical place in which people will go there if they behave badly in the real world, he also points how it is important to the creation of an authoritarian government. For Hannah Arendt, the diminishing of authority has been one of the sins of our current world, and in order to create authority, the source of an authoritarian government must be beyond man-made laws, which for Arendt are the laws of nature, the commands of God, the constitutions in our secular societies, because nowadays, if we want to change a kind of constitution, it is really hard to do so, even with a majority in government. And even though the constitution are usually summoned by people as a kind of sacred documents, something like a kind of modern Bible or Quran, then this is used to justify different measures taken into account in the different societies. So, if we go from the idea of the ancient Greece and to Aristotle, who again, he points how the polis was composed by many rulers who were monarchs at home, as he uses this analogy, how Aristotle and Plato introduced authority in the polis using the pre-political example, again the household, and the idea of making and the arts with the example of the craftsman that I have just explained before. The Roman Empire took this as their foundation, how authority and tradition play a decisive role in the political life of the modern republic. And it was, according to Hannah Arendt, the Romans who were rooted in the soil, not the Greeks, because the Greeks, if there was overpopulation, they could always be sent to another place to create a new polis and a new kind of city-state in the ancient Greece. However, the Romans were rooted in the soil, which was the extension of the Roman Empire, and the word patria derives its full meaning from Roman history. So, going back to the foundation of hell that Plato created, for Hannah Arendt, there is an interesting fusion between the Roman Republic and the ancient Greek city-states. She points, quote, politically, the most momentous consequence of the amalgamation of Roman political institutions with Greek philosophy ideas was that it enabled the Church to interpret the rather vague and conflicting notions of early Christianity about life in the hereafter in the light of the Platonic political myth. In other words, how politic thought has evolved from the ancient Greece to the Roman Republic and the Christian world. The idea of St. Augustine of the city of God, it is a development carried forward by Plato with his conception of hell in order to coerce the masses. For that reason, Hannah Arendt defines this idea of Plato as, quote, an ingenious device to enforce obediences, because this idea of hell and punishment was used to coerce the masses for political purpose. Political purpose that, again, for the philosophers in the ancient Greece, for Plato, was to create ideas outside of the public realm to implement them later on the polis in order to create a kind of dogmatic approach to life, which that's been the commands of God in the religious world or the constitution in the secular realm. In that sense, we see how there were other kind of political thinkers from then on, but those were the most important and most influential about that. And we'll finish the episode here because Hannah Arendt also dedicates a chapter to the modern world and how the influence of Plato, Christianity, and the Roman Republic has shaped our current times, and also how, according to her, the diminishing of authority was one of the faults for the establishing of totalitarian regimes in the 20th century.